Guys, welcome to MyGuy Reviews. Today we're starting off our very first podcast, and our podcast format will kind of follow a simple-ish format where I will give you guys a couple of clues to try and work out what we're about to talk about, and then we will talk about the topic and we will review the contents within. So if it's an artist, like a musical artist, we will talk about the albums, we'll talk about the singles. If it's a director, we'll be talking about their films. If it's an actor or actress, again, we'll be about their filmography.
And I'll be in the same boat as
Yes.
you guys, because I won't have a clue what we're talking about.
You're coming in blind as well. And if it's like a writer as well, again, we'll be talking about like their books or comics or whatever it is. So you're coming in clean and you're coming in unaware of what we're about to talk today about as well. So you will be playing along with the listener. But of course, the title on the podcast will give away the topic. So it's just you by yourself playing. So none of the listeners are playing. Okay. So
Well, it's general podcast title, yeah, it'll be okay.
So I'm going to give you a couple of clues as to what we're talking about, the subject matter, and then we'll get into, and I'm hoping you've got enough knowledge already about this subject that you can just bring it out. And because when we get into it, you'll be kind of reviewing parts by yourself, and I'll leave you to it. So
We'll see.
we're talking about a fictional character, okay? This fictional character was created in part by Steve Ditko. Anything
Who's
yet?
that? No idea who that is.
No idea. Okay, I don't want to give away his collaborator because that'd be too easy, I think. This character has been in about 10 movies so far. So he's quite new to
A character that's been in 10 movies.
Yes.
Okay.
Created by Steve Ditko. Okay. He's the character's also been on movies, comic books, cartoons, lunch boxes, any kind of merchandise you can think of. This person is all over it.
Okay.
Okay.
I've got an idea already.
This person wears a costume.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to start guessing?
No, let's have some more clues. Let's see what your big clue is then. I think I've got an idea.
Okay.
Let's keep guessing, guys.
Let's keep guessing.
In our heads first.
Okay,
I think I know who it might be. So yeah. What's the next big clue?
So we're talking about this person in just cinema only. We won't be talking about the merchandising and the books or anything else. So we're just talking about cinema because I think you've got a better grasp of that person in cinema only. And we're only talking in this example cinematic releases. So we won't be talking about straight to DVD stuff or anything. Okay. So this character wears a costume. He or she.
Does he take photographs?
Sometimes inappropriate photographs. Sure, why not?
Wait, what?
Works for a newspaper.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Works for a newspaper. Okay. Takes photos.
Takes photos. Yes.
For a living, yeah.
For a living.
Is it someone else? Or is he more the typist at the newspaper?
He takes photos for a living, yes.
Okay.
Plus, he might have additional jobs because he needs to supplement his income.
Okay. So I just give my guess so far then.
Yes, far away.
Sounds like it might be Spider-Man.
It is Spider-Man.
Yes.
We're talking about Spider-Man, but in cinematic form only. Because I know when I said Steve Ditko, you were like, I don't know who that is. He's the co-creator with Stan Lee for creating. Okay. So hence why I didn't say Stan Lee. So we're going to talk about all the movies.
I used to love the cartoon back in the day, but only like occasionally. I didn't follow it like some people do. So
yeah, there's been so many reincarnations of the cartoon as well. So it's difficult to just pick a few of them. There'll be like the 80s Amazing Spider-Man. There'll be the ones where they do the multiverse kind of transfers and stuff. So instead of getting too kind of complicated, I thought let's just talk about his films.
And the Mega Drive game. Oh yeah, that was good. And the PlayStation 2.
The new PS4 game.
Spider-Man 2, and also the new PS4 game, which I haven't played yet, but looks amazing.
That's incredible. Yeah, definitely get your hands on that if you
And
haven't.
that's on offer on PSN at the moment as well. So
There you go. A little plug for
$24.99.
Sony. We're
Yeah,
here. We're here. We need endorsements.
yeah. Please pay us.
Please take any money we get.
For this on our own back.
We'll talk about the movies. You will review each one now that you guessed correctly who we're talking about, and we're going to talk about where. And it leads all the way up to obviously the new Spider-Man movie that hasn't been released yet, Far From Home. So hence why we're talking about Spider-Man, because obviously we're not far off the release of the new Spider-Man film. I wanted to bring something more topical in where we can talk about this character who's changed quite a lot as well. And then we'll then do our definitive ranking as well of all these movies, which ones you think is the best and the worst.
Yeah.
And
I
we'll
might
give
talk
it
about the video games.
Sure, slip them in. I mean, there's no room for that in this review, but sure, you can try. Try damn video games in here. But yes, so let's start with the very first Spider-Man. Now, do you remember the very first Spider-Man?
No.
1977. The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, we're not actually going to talk about it, but this was quite unique in that it's a Spider-Man film that did get released on VHS back in the day. For those people who don't know, we used to have cassettes and you'd put them in something called a VCR. Yeah. But it actually got a cinematic release in countries outside of the US. So what do you think the story was? What do you think the synopsis for this 1977 Spider-Man was?
Let me guess. Green Goblin. That's about it.
Basically, it's obviously Peter Parker, freelance photographer for the Daily Bugle. He's bitten by a radioactive spider and discovers he's got Spider-Man powers. That's the basic synopsis. You couldn't have gone wrong.
Oh, nice.
But we're not really going to talk about that one because that's just a straight to VHS. But that's kind of the very first time Spider-Man got a cinematic release back in 1977. So back before the actual release of the very first kind of Spider-Man movie in 2002.
That's interesting.
Why is that 1977?
Yeah, that's interesting. That was only a couple of years before Superman actually came out, wasn't it? So that's which really sort of boosted up the mainstream sort of capability of films about superheroes. So Spider-Man kind of just missed the mark by the sounds of it, 77. I'd be interested to see how good it is.
Yeah, I mean, if Netflix are listening, hey Netflix, if you can put it on there, we would love to watch it because we have a Netflix account that we use, which we pay for, but we would be happy for you guys to chuck that in there, and then we could definitely catch the very first Spider-Man movie. So the Spider-Man movie came out in 77, but didn't get like a full cinematic release. And you're right, Superman was released back in 78, so literally the year after. So that's when you had the very first kind of major superhero film come out in cinema and get the big push and stuff. But yeah, so that was the very first. But ignoring all of that, it's kind of it's what happened
now to the 2000s.
Fast forward just before 2002. So in Marvel Studios, obviously, were going through some big issues. They were almost bankrupt, and they had to sell off a whole bunch of comic books and a whole bunch of merchandise and literally rights to stuff. So they sold the rights to the Blade movie as well. At this time, they'd already sold the rights to what's it called? They'd sold the rights to the X-Men franchise. They'd sold the rights to Spider-Man as well. So there was a time where we had 89 Batman, and then we had Batman Begins, Batman and Robin, and then it kind of all just crashed the superhero movie thing, and there wasn't many films being made. And then back in 98, Blade came out, and that was a huge kind of box office hit in comparisons to how little it cost to make. It's an R-rated film, and it made like 130 million or something, worldwide. So it's a huge success based on that. And then Blade in my eyes, really kind of kickstarted that whole superhero movie thing again. Because once Blade came out, and it was a huge success. People were like, okay, so what other properties can you do again? So in 2002, you had Blade 2 come out, and that's the time a little film called Spider-Man,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man,
Spider-Minecraft. Yeah.
Spider-Man was released. So back before kind of because Spider-Man would have been one of those superheroes that they Sony purchased, or it'd been through a lot of hands since then, but it finally came across, and Sony were looking at making this film, and they pumped in a ton of money in terms of kind of the budget. I think it's like 150 million or something. So it was a big budget film. It was getting the studio back in. It was going to get their marketing push and everything. This was after Blade. This was kind of maybe the marquee superhero movie to come out. And a little known director called Sam Raimi was involved. And I remember thinking when this came out, I would have been like 2 years old, but thinking, oh, Sam Raimi, I love him. Like he did the Evil Dead films and kind of Army of Darkness and stuff, but he had some other films in between as well. But I think this is his first real forte out of that kind of dark genre that he was in. Because films like The Gift or For the Love of the Game, Simple Plan, they're still a bit dark, and they were a bit kind of they had the Sam Raimi touch about them. They weren't all horror films. And then he was given this big, colorful comic book movie to bring to life in 2002. It starts production before that. And it was called Spider-Man. And this was the very first big movie, I think. I remember watching this in New York a year after the World Trade Center thingies happened. But I just don't remember what the synopsis is. So can you fill us in on the very first Spider-Man?
No.
What's the plot?
Spider-Man is bitten by a radioactive spider.
That's right, yeah.
Discovers he has super spider powers.
He does.
Uncle Ben dies.
Oh, he does die in this one.
And then his friend turns all evil, and that's about it, isn't it?
Well, it's not his friend, is it? It's the Green Goblin. It's William Dafoe. It's his dad. Yes,
his friend's dad.
And they show you the bit where he's going to become a wrestler. Remember all of that?
Yeah.
And he actually lets the killer run past him because of something that the owner said when he could have stopped the killer from killing Uncle Ben. Yeah. And with that, he gets that incredible line: "With great power comes great responsibility."
Yeah.
And then it's
his character.
Yeah, and then he fights the Green Goblin in the parade. Do you remember that bit? That was quite cool. The CGI does not hold up that well, but for a kind of origin story, because there wasn't many kind of comic booky things, this was a really good, solid film, I thought. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. There's a lot that happens in such a kind of, because you got the origin, you got Uncle Ben dying, and you got him becoming Spider-Man, and then you've got the whole
origin had to rush through, isn't there?
Yeah, and they got that montage where he's learning his skill sets and he's learning how to do web swinging and stuff. All of that was quite cool. Green Goblin, that relationship between him and James Franco was good. Where they're best friends, and then at the same time they become not so, because obviously his dad prefers Peter over him and stuff. And it had maybe the best comic book actor thus far in J.K. Simmons as Jonah Jameson, the head of the Daily Bugle. He was amazing. He was just so he was so on point. I remember him in the comics. He had the hair that looked just like him. He had the shirt, the tie, everything. He looked just, and he smoked that big cigar. It was brilliant. Sam Raimi did a great job with this one. Who else? I can't remember who played Aunt May, because we was going to talk about Aunt May's later. But so the very first Spider-Man movie actually broke loads of box office records as well. Kind of opening weekend, it was huge, and I think it became the first film to make like 100 million domestic opening in a single weekend. And since then, obviously, other films have kind of gone past that feat. It was really highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes as well, or critical response was generally very good on this one. So, I mean, there's not a lot much to say other than that film was Sam Raimi came in. I think he knocked it out of the park with the first one. I think it was really good. A good, solid, especially for that time.
Yeah.
Simple origin film.
I agree. I mean, it did. Yeah, it started off the Spider-Man world very well for the cinema. I still don't like Tobey Maguire as a Spider-Man, but yeah, the movies were pretty good.
I think Tobey Maguire doesn't suit Peter Parker because he's too mopey and he's too sad looking.
Stupid little smirk thing, I don't like. Just his face.
And he looked a little bit too old to be in school as well. That's the only thing. And when he was taking pictures of Kirsten Dunst, he does look a bit pervy. He couldn't pull it off. He didn't have that charisma as well that Peter Parker should have, where you can kind of relate to him as well. So giving it our patented rating system. So for me, it's always the very first is go to the cinema, watch the film, experience it as you should do. Download it on or purchase it on VOD or DVD player and watch it at home. Use a streaming service because you already pay for it, and then the other one, forget about it. It's fine. This one I actually watched in New York, so this is for me was the cinematic experience.
That's amazing. You were in New York and watched this.
I was in New York, literally a week after the movie got released. I almost met my future wife that day, Alicia Keys, but unfortunately she didn't see me. But she was there performing. Because it was a year to the day for the World Trade Center stuff. And we were there and it was Good Morning America or something. Okay. Anyway, and Alicia, I was waving, I was trying to chat to her, and there's so many people, they just kept coming in the way. So she couldn't see me, but it's unfortunate.
I bet she had a real look of frustration on her face.
I think she did. Because she's looking in the crowd, she was looking at me, and I know it.
We just wanted to go.
Just move out of the way, so this was definitely a cinematic one for myself. What do you think?
I can't really remember it. And I think your cinema rating is probably the most useful, so I think we should stick to that today for these Spider-Man reviews. So
for yourself, forget about it.
Yeah, I mean the first three Spider-Mans generally, they do okay, but Tobey Maguire's annoying.
Is that yes or no?
That's probably a 3 out of 4 stars. There you go.
Brilliant. Okay, so that then moves us into the second movie in the franchise, which was obviously Spider-Man 2. What's the plot?
Let's see. His uncle's still dead.
Oh yes, yeah.
I guess there's another enemy of some kind.
There is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it could be Dr. Octopus.
Dr. Octavius, yeah. Dr. Octopus.
Dr. Octavius? Oh, sorry.
Yes. No. Is that Octavius, Doc Ock, or Dr. Octopus, or Dr. Octavius, yeah.
That's all fine. Half mark. Yeah, okay. Yeah. He kicks his butt.
He does kick his butt. So do you remember this film at all? Or no. Okay, so there's in the trailer and in the film there's this incredible cinematic sequence where he's in the restaurant and he's talking to MJ.
Yeah.
And they're just talking, and then the film slows down, and that the taxi car smashes through the window, and you see it because he's got spider sense, and you see that whole slow motion thing play out. That's incredible. There is shoddy CGI where he's fighting Dr. Octavius, but I give it all a pass because I think Dr. Octavius, I can't I can't remember who played him, but Alfred Mohinlio or something, I think. But anyway, he was really good. He was very commanding, and that backstory that he had. Like he's lost his wife. There's a reason why he's becoming a bit crazy and stuff. I believed all of that. I think that was really good in this. Like the villain, they actually let him grow and they let him kind of become a character, and then you sympathize with him right at the very end when he destroys the energy source and he passes away in the Hudson River or wherever it is. And the whole thing was really good, like especially for a character story just on him. It was really good. And you still had the MJ and you had the Peter Parker story as well going on.
That story dragging on.
It just kept dragging on. Because that all happens. It's always him and MJ. They can't really be together, but they want to be together. There's always something else. Like he's always trying to say, and I think
something going on.
Yeah, there's always that thing where he's always distracted. He can't make it to things. He can't make it to her plays. He can't come here and there, and he's just
too busy working with his hands and the white stuff coming out, with his wrists. He just hasn't got time to focus on Mary Jane. All the sticky stuff.
All that sticky stuff coming out his hands.
White stuff from his wrists. Yeah. He needs to focus. And he's wasting his life.
The good thing about this one is because once you've done the origin story, you've given Spider-Man his powers, you created that. The second one is him being Spider-Man from then on, and I think that's really good because it's just him, just being Spider-Man, and then you have a foe who's equally mentally as intelligent as him, if not far superior, but also physically a match for him. That battle where they're climbing up the building, even though the CGI is a bit rubbish, it looks good. I think they're definitely equal in strength and mental agility, and I love that. I think you've created a good world in the first one,
good strong,
and then you've taken that world and you made it even better, and you expanded on it, and you created better villains in this example, and there's a lot more going on, and I know as much as people don't like Tobey Maguire, but he's mopey and stuff. His uncle died, right? His uncle died. It was his fault, and he knows it deep down. So he can't let that go. And there's that none of these films have those post-credit scenes, but there is the bit at the end of the film, or just before the end, where Harry's kind of looking inside the mirror, and then he sees all of kind of the mirror smashes, and he sees inside all of his dad's inventions, and he then takes on the mantle of the Hobgoblin for the next film. So these were films before kind of these post-credit scenes. Let's build to the next one, where you build it within the film. And if the first one ended and there was no more Spider-Man, it was a complete film. There was no like breadcrumbs for sequels and spin-offs and stuff. It was just a complete film, and I think that's what people forget nowadays. Just make it a complete film. Forget kind of trying to expand the world into potentially this plot line will pay off in the third film or this second film. Just complete everything in the first film, and then if it does well, and there's a hammering for it, then you'll get a second one anyway.
I
just
think
keep
you're
some
right.
of those thread lines.
You really do have to give props to the originals, those first three Spider-Man movies, that they did really well at self-containing movies that could carry on, strong protagonist and strong antagonists. Really, I mean, what we're used to now is the cinematic universe. It's just crazy stuff, but this really was very strong. Yeah.
And then you just make your sequel, or you can spin it off in so many different ways. Just make a good first film. just keep it simple, make it good, and then the rest will follow. So the second film, as always, costs more money. It costs like 200 million. So you've gone from about 140 or 150 million for the first one to the second one costing like 200 million. So Sony are really pumping money into this. This is kind of now where there's loads more superhero movies being made in 2004. You'll have X-Men out by then. You'll have Batman Begins and stuff. So loads more films were coming out. People were really pumping more and more money into these films. And then, the second one does incredibly well, critically acclaimed as well. There's financially. And based on our kind of rating, again, for me, this was a cinematic, watch it in the cinema kind of thing. It was so good. That whole train sequence was great. Just him talking to MJ in the caf and the car comes flying in. That was amazing as well. I think there's so many great bits in the film that it was well worth watching in the cinema.
Yeah, I agree.
And is this your 3 out of 4? Is this slightly better?
Yeah, let's stick with 3 out of 4 for Spider-Man.
So up until then as well, like the sequels, in my opinion, tended not to be as good as the originals. You had a few exceptions already by then. You had Godfather 2, Aliens, Terminator 2, X-Men 2, and now we had Spider-Man 2, which was, I think, better than the first one, because the first one was just a simple origin movie. Let's get it out the way. Let's show him what Spider-Man, how he gets his powers. The second one takes that character and you get more information about the world, but you also get an incredible villain, and I think the stakes were higher as well, and the action sequences were better, and a lot more happened. And I think that's kind of like, it's very rare, especially in superhero films nowadays. Yeah, the second one is much better than the first one.
Well, really, it should be expected, because the first movies always have to be origin movies with these superhero movies. So really, the second one should always be the point where they've got a good pace and they can finally. But I guess Spider-Man has the advantage of having a really vast world in the comic books and cartoons already. So there is a vast world that's already there, so they don't have to sort of just muddle along. They've kind of got something they can sort of showcase in their movie once they get a sequel.
I think the way Sam Raimi or the guys sat down and did it as well, like, you had the Green Goblin, he died, spoiler alert. You had Dr. Octavius, he died. And then you got this one, the third one, which will have another villain. And so, each time he's bringing in new villains, he's not retreading stuff. So it's not like, we've got this villain who we're going to reuse through multiple films, or they will be referenced throughout. It's just literally one and gone. I mean, because Spider-Man's got a huge rogues gallery, so does Batman. And you could just burn through so many of their villains, and you've only gone through like 2 films. So you might as well use the best villains and then just kind of burn through them. It's fine, because sometimes that's all you want to see. You want to see the person fight against their villain and then defeat them ultimately. And then that moves us on to Spider-Man 3. So Spider-Man 3 came out 3 years after number 2.
3
but
years.
Also, at the time, the film was the most expensive movie ever made, with a budget of 258 million. Wow. So you imagine, like, the first one cost, like, let's say 130 or 140. The next one's 200. This is now 258 million. So it's the most expensive cinematic release film of all time in 2007. That's incredible, the amount of money that they were pumping into this franchise now, because they were so thinking, this is it. This is a big hit. We've got this huge franchise on our hands. We can do anything we want. And what's the plot of this one?
Oh, the plot of this one, Spider-Man 3.
Yes.
Well, obviously, it's about Spider-Man.
As always.
And the Green Goblin. Sorry, the Hobgoblin.
The Hobgoblin, yeah. Anyone else? Anything more than that?
It's had a Venom, the space alien Venom in it?
It does have a Venom, yeah.
And there was one other enemy in there as well. The Sandman.
There is one more. The Sandman, yeah. So this is where you can tell, like, there's just villain overload. They just chuck everything at this film.
Too much.
Reading into it more and more, Sam Raimi didn't really want Venom, but someone was saying, yeah, Venom's really popular in the comics. Let's put Venom into the movie as well somehow. And Sam Raimi really wanted just Sandman. And he wanted to end that story of the Sandman and kind of Uncle Ben as well, give that closure. But they were like, no, chuck this in and chuck this in. So you got a lot of kind of studio interference for the first time in kind of like this sort of movie. And it kind of
Yeah.
shows because the film is a bit of a mess. You've got the symbiote comes in very early and he attaches itself to Peter Parker, who then wears that incredible black suit, which looks amazing. And he becomes Venom for a little while.
Yeah, sorted.
Back on. That's all right. And then he becomes Venom. And then our good friend Toba Grace becomes Venom. How cool was that? But watching the new Venom movie and kind of just seeing him in characters and stuff in the comics, he's so much bigger than Spider-Man. So I know Toba Grace was a bigger actor, but if they'd got someone who's taller, he or she could have like really taken on that. Well, Venom could be. You got female Venom as well, but they could have just had a bigger Eddie Brock, and therefore he's more formidable towards Spider-Man when they fight. And then it was just that whole fight at the end, which was like that big Sandman thing that came out, and they were fighting against him, and they were fighting Venom, and the Hobgoblin joined in as well. It's just so much going on, and it's just a mess. And then they all pretty much just Venom, the symbiote. They find out how to defeat him, playing certain sounds. So he goes away. Harry Osborn dies, so he's gone, and then he gets that bit of closure at the end with regards to the Sandman. And there's that first kind of felt bloated, this film, and it just felt like for the first time they had a good idea, they made it better, kept it quite simple, and now they were like, we'll do everything in this third film.
Yeah,
they could have just concentrated on should have just concentrated on one strand and completed that strand, and then you've always got more things you can do later on. And this film suffers from that a lot, I feel.
It's as you say, like the strength of the first two was that they were self-contained, and they didn't try to extend the universe. Well, they didn't try to extend the series beyond where they were. But the third one totally failed at that, because they tried to introduce Venom before they even had the space to do it. They should have stuck with Sandman, maybe Green Goblin, obviously that story as well, and then just left Venom to have his own movie, to have a real entrance instead of sort of shooing him in with everyone else. Exactly,
because you got the problem is you've got too many storylines, and then people are just like, well, okay, it's not clear as to what your vision is anymore.
It takes away the human elements, because it's just all based on you've got to have more and more action and enemies, so you've lost the human element of Spider-Man.
And you could have Venom come in number 4, and he would have his own film. But you could have just cleaned up 2 kind of storylines there for the Hobgoblin and for the Sandman, and that would have been enough. And we, based on kind of what we've seen so far, where we had a sequel, we've only got one villain. You had the original with just one villain, and they all worked. So if that works, you don't need to break the formula too much. Yeah. But
on reflection, I've been saying how much I hated Tobey Maguire's face, but I think it's actually
beautiful.
It's the third movie that killed it for me, I think.
Yeah, because he does that beautiful dance. You remember when he comes out of the shop and he does a dance while he's walking down the high street? We call it high street in this country, but who's walking down?
Sidewalk.
The sidewalk. That's it. Yeah.
Country you're in.
So based on kind of like the movies and their kind of response and kind of what we've said so far in terms of grade, this one for myself would be like, watch it on a streaming service. I mean, it's not one I'd spend my money and go out my way to get. This is just, if it's there, you'd watch it kind of thing, because I feel like they really let down their own franchise by kind of making it. I don't know what they were trying to do. There was just too much going on. And there was no clear kind of I think there's a lot that happens when the pressure from the company says, but this guy's popular and he'll sell merch and we'll be able to do this spin-offs and stuff, and they're just like, well, let's just concentrate on finishing this, and they're like, no.
But the movies were already making money, so why did they even need to do that?
Exactly.
What were they aiming for?
It's one of those things. There'll be an exec sat there going, in the comics, this character's the most beloved character, somehow shoehorn that person in, and then reluctantly writers have to then somehow write that character in, and that they've got a solid story.
And it's destroyed it, because I was really looking forward to seeing a Venom as well, but they didn't do it well because there wasn't the space for it to be done properly. So
it took till 2018 for a new Venom
they're
movie.
shooting themselves in the foot is the word.
Yes,
that's what they did, Sony.
So
well
before we talk about the Amazing Spider-Man, so just give you some numbers, right? So this first Spider-Man, let's say, cost about 140 million, grossed 821 worldwide. So that's huge returns on a smallish budget, right? 400 in US, 418 worldwide. The second one costs more, 200 million. Still made 373 in the US, 410. So it's still 783 million. So it's a slight drop. Like there's about 40 million drop, but you've spent 60 million. And then the third one, they spent even more. So 258 million. And this is currently was the highest grossing film in the whole franchise at 890 million. But the number there, that's kind of the one that should kind of ring alarm bells, even though it's not massive. It's just the US opening had depreciated while the worldwide gross had increased. And that could be down to, emerging markets. You have a place like China who became bigger, Europe, and plus exchange rates and stuff. So at that point, the pound was worth loads. So, £1 was what, $1.6, $1.8. So we watch one film here, spend £10, that's like 18 US dollars. So, the currency and stuff. So that could be any number of reasons. But that just goes to show they pump more and more into it. And then in terms of critical responses for the first Spider-Man's like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's got a huge, everyone's saying, yep, they loved it. It's really good. It's one of the best, because only 10% of people saying they didn't enjoy it. Second one's 93%. So people, again, agreeing with what I was saying, like the second one's better. And the third one is at 63%. So it's just above average, which is kind of where I'd put it as well. But it wasn't spectacular. I think I had high expectations for it, because the first one was good, the second one was so much better, and the third one just is a whimper. It's a huge letdown. Poor Tobey Maguire, because he bless him, he had to do that dance all by himself. And I think Sam Raimi did a great job as well. And I remember watching Drag Me to Hell after that. That was great. Everything him and Bruce Campbell kind of do, I'd watch. So I'm always down for that. And after that, there's always talks about Spider-Man 4 and who would they fight against. And there's lots of stuff that they were working on, maybe like Mysterio, Shocker, Prowler, Rhino, all sorts of kind of people.
Too many.
But that, again, too many. And again, and then so Sam Raimi eventually, like it just became like, okay, look, shoot 2 films back to back, or continue the story by doing this and that. And they were there's too much involvement. And he wanted to go one way, and I think he wanted the Lizard. Again, the studio would have said, well, we want you to have these people in there, and he would have just said, you know what, now I'm not interested, because I know John Malkovich was in negotiations to play the Vulture. They're talking about Felicity Hardy as well, all sorts of people, but it's just keep to a simple story. Let's not try to get crazy, and that's the problem with the third one. And then that moves us nicely into Marc Webb. I mean, what a name! If you're going to direct a film franchise, it has to be Spider-Man, right? Your name is Marc Webb. If I was to tell you, name another film that Marc Webb's directed, you would say you don't know, I bet.
I had no idea. You tell me.
Well, Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
That's 2 films. No, before that, he directed a film called 500 Days of Summer, starring Joseph Levitt, forget his name, and Zoe
Levitt.
That's the man, and Zoe Deschanel. Amazing film. I love that film.
Yeah.
So super excited. Super excited for this film, only purely because 500 Days of Summer is such a good film. I just loved it. And then this time they got Andrew Garfield, who's just so handsome. He's too handsome to play Peter Parker. A beautiful long hair that he has. And he doesn't seem like a kid who'd be bullied in school. He's just too cool. There's something about him, right?
Yeah.
He's too handsome. He's too cool. He's not the Peter
Yeah.
Parker.
Yeah.
He's just a beautiful looking man. I mean,
But he
if I
has
ever
got a
met him,
redeeming factor as Spider-Man.
and what's that?
Of course,
It's his
he's
hair.
not Tobey Maguire. He's not Tobey Maguire.
Oh, it's because
His face is not Tobey Maguire's face, which
the bar
I've had
is
enough
so
of by
low.
now. Yes.
That was my only problem with Garfield. He's just he's too good looking. I mean, you know, I bet he's never been told that before. But as a Peter Parker, I want my Peter Parker to be kind of a bit more nerdy, be more into science. Just has that look about him that kind of gets bullied in school. Garfield's just he's just a cool dude.
That and Emma Stone as well.
I bet he's never seen a Bunsen burner in his life. He's just a beautiful man. And alongside Emma Stone. So The Amazing Spider-Man came out in 2012, a reboot of the Spider-Man franchise. The first time they've rebooted Spider-Man thus far. Yeah. What was the plot?
Spider-Man gets bitten.
Yes.
And brace yourself for this, because this is quite a shocker.
By
a radioactive spider.
Wow. Yes.
Yes. And meets Mary Jane.
Yeah. Now played by Emma Watson. No, this isn't Emma Jane.
No, it's not, is it?
It's Gwen Stacy. The first introduction of Gwen Stacy, yeah.
And actually, I do remember the enemy in this one. It's the lizard.
Yes, it is. It's his teacher, the science teacher in school.
It was very the lizard, yeah. Which I really enjoyed this reboot. I was quite happy with this reboot personally.
You might be on your own there.
Is that exactly? I mean, all the fans, all the like old school comic fans, just like, oh, that was just a lazy reboot. But actually, I quite like the style of it. Or it was Amazing Spider-Man. Was there anyone else in it that I've missed?
Uncle Ben's in it, and he dies again.
Oh no, Uncle Ben.
I know, and played by Martin Sheen this time. But most notably, it had the best-looking Mary Parker, Aunt May so far. We had Sally Field, and Sally Field's the babe, absolute babe, right? I saw her in this film where she stars alongside this guy from New Girl, Smith from New Girl, and I'm trying to think of the name. That's why I was padding. And it's such a great movie. It's such an hello, my name is Doris. That's it. That's why I call it Doris Day. It's such a good film. Again, Sally Fields is so good. She just has such a small role in this, and it's a shame. I mean, and also, let's be honest, she's a babe. I mean, this film's just got good-looking people. I mean, you go from Tobey Maguire, which had James Franco, William Dafoe.
But that's also your problem with this movie, though, isn't it?
It's just too many good-looking people, right? Yeah, everyone's just good-looking.
Too pretty.
Now, Martin Sheen. I mean, as an Uncle Ben, he's just I mean, he's too dreamy.
How can you kill a face like that?
Exactly. Why would you kill a face like that? I guess the lizard was the only person who wasn't as handsome as the others, hence why he died in the film. But even Dennis Leary's in this, and you know he voices the tiger in the Ice Age films. Again, I mean, I guess if you're Gwen Stacy's dad, you got to be good looking. But my problem with this film was just Marc Webb, just whoever the casting crew is, everybody's just too good looking, and for my Spider-Man senses personally. But we'll get to the next one later. So this one basically it's a reboot, so it is exactly the same origin. But now, obviously, it's the lizard, and he's doing some DNA testing, and he's trying to regrow a limb. And he discovers that there is a way of doing it in reptiles, and there's some sort of formula and something he can do. And then he takes himself, as all mad doctors do, and then he turns into reptile. And then Spider-Man's taking some photos of him in the sewer. And remember, he then finds Peter Parker's camera and he smashes it into bits. I know. Especially when he doesn't even have any money himself.
Yeah, this stuff costs money, man.
And in this one, he even tells Gwen Stacy who's Spider-Man, which is weird, but still, I mean, could have kept that for a second film.
It had some problems.
It had that start as well where it was about where young Peter and his parents get kind of taken away, at the start of the film, where they give you this breadcrumb of something that will potentially pay off eventually, who knows when. So you never really find out about his parents much in this film, but they're for some reason they're kind of implied that, there's a bigger story here. And that's, for me, was kind of like the start of the end of this kind of franchise straight away. You just give me breadcrumbs. I want to have the full sandwich. Just give me the sandwich. I'll eat it. I'll enjoy it. I don't need to worry about the next meal. I'll get to it when you get to it. But don't just keep giving me breadcrumbs and then there's no payoff to it. That's what I felt like in this franchise, in this one in particular. But also, this
Another
is one of those
franchise of cancelled sequels.
This was one of those movies where it was for, I think, every big Hollywood kind of movie was doing that big sky beam in the air, climb to the top of a building. There's a massive sky beam and things are going to float off the air. So his whole plan was to infect everybody else with the same DNA and make everyone into reptiles. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember that now. To make everyone freaks so that he's not the only one.
So he basically, just so everyone else is the same. But the one thing I did like about this was, I think it's when it's him and he's chasing down Gwen Stacy and she's being chased in the building, and it then has that kind of bit more of a darker element to it when the lizard's chasing her, and she's going into a room. He smashes into the room and is following her. All of that was quite good, but other than that, the film for me, it wasn't that good. I didn't really enjoy it that much.
Lot for you.
My only problem is it's just Garfield, man. You're too good looking. He's just too handsome. I can't.
You're just easily distracted.
I'm looking at his beautiful hair. Like, at least Tobey Maguire's hair is not on point. Like, Tobey Maguire I can watch.
True.
And I'm watching the film because of him. I'm watching Andy.
His hair is never messed up.
Exactly, and I see Andrew Garfield. I'm looking into his eyes. I'm looking at his beautiful hair. I'm just distracted. I can't see what's going on in the film.
In the back of the cinema.
Exactly. And then Sally Field
people
pops
are
up
turning
as well.
around looking at what the grunting noises are.
Exactly. To be fair, the Spider-Man mechanics from the first bunch, where you could tell it's obviously CGI, where he's bouncing around, to now, that's all improving, and it looks a lot more slicker. It looks a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, you didn't need to reboot the whole franchise.
No,
to make a subpar film. If they made a great film, then sure. But yeah, for me, I felt it was fine. But yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much. I preferred the first two, but this is better than the third one, I'd say. But it wasn't.
I agree with that. The stories for the first two were a lot better. This wasn't really very strong on that sense, but it was a fun reboot, I think. And from hardcore comic book fans apparently hated it, so that's another perspective.
Yes, that's always a good kind of gauge when you go to the hardcore fans who are like clamoring for a particular kind of film. And then when
it's too furry,
and when somebody makes a film that is just for the fans, it's never well received. It's never well liked.
They always hate it. You can never please all fans, so don't even try.
So this film cost 230 million, right? So this is 2012. Still less than Spider-Man 3, but still a large sum of money. And you can tell by kind of like the domestic and worldwide gross now, it's got diminishing returns. So you're looking at 262 million worldwide, domestic, and then 495. So it's 750 million, let's say, gross. So the previous Spider-Man films, the lowest grossing was 780 million. So it's now making less money. So it just means, because of whatever reason, maybe the film's not that good.
Yeah. Maybe Sony didn't want a fourth movie, so they purposely made it that killed the series. Made sure the next movie was really bad.
And it kind of follows with what I was saying. So in terms of like the critical response as well. So if the Spider-Man 3 is about 63%, this one was like 72, so slightly better. So I would say exactly the same. This one is slightly better than number 3, but not much better. And it's one of those, I'd say, if it's on the streaming service, watch it. I wouldn't pay money personally to watch this one. That's my rating. Where do you put it?
I'll give it a 3 out of 4 stars, I think.
Again,
Or-
wow.
or-
Hey,
I enjoyed it.
You love good-looking teens in
I wasn't
films.
distracted. Yeah. Yeah, I'm at the back enjoying it. What's your problem with it?
And then that was followed by Amazing Spider-Man 2. So the sequel, again, directed by Marc Webb. And what was the plot of this one?
I have no idea. I can't remember. It's a forgettable film, I guess. What happened?
So, this is...
Wait.
Yeah, go on
Is
then.
this is Dubstep Man, isn't it? Is this Dubstep Man? Well, I'm not thinking of a different series here.
I don't know. What happened in Dubstep Man?
Dubstep Man, the guy that just walks along making dubstep sounds.
That's the one. Yeah, that's it.
Electro.
That's it. It's Electro.
Yes.
He's so forgettable. You
Good
forgot who he
movie.
was. It was
I
Electro.
love that. So funny. Every time he comes out, steps out, it just
yeah.
starts to drop the dubstep music. It's like, yeah, Dubstep Man.
And he also had the Green Goblin.
Okay. I can't remember that.
Exactly. Also had the Rhino.
Okay.
Do you remember the trailers always had this bit where the Spider-Man's running towards the Rhino, picks up a what are those things called? The
truck.
Manhole. I think it's the manhole thing. Oh, yeah, and he's swinging that around to hit the Rhino, and that's where the film ends. And again, that's another problem that I have. But why even have the Rhino if you're just going to end it when he's about to fight the Rhino?
Yeah, it wasn't a good idea.
And the Electro stuff was all kind of boring. Electro knew of kind of Gwen Stacy, and he knew of Peter Parker and stuff like that. You know, he was there. He's always worked there. Nobody liked him. Remember that whole start of the film where it just seems like nobody seems to like him, and he's a fan of Spider-Man. And then obviously he gets bitten by all these electrodes, and you know,
comic book fans never like that sort of story, because it's just like, I mean, lots of people that are comic book fans have experienced sort of being maybe not the in crowd and sort of the most popular crowds, and stories like this in comic book movies, I think, are always going to land badly, because it's like, oh, anyone that's not popular is going to turn evil and see to everyone's like, no, that's not good. Not really what people want to hear.
And come on, Jamie Foxx, man, he's so dreamy. It doesn't matter how you dress him up. Like he's
too beautiful.
He's if they got a villain who didn't look that good, and then he fell into some electrodes and he turned into Electro, I was like, okay, I'm on board, right? Because he's no Jamie Foxx. But this is Jamie Foxx, man. Don't blame it on the alcohol. You know, the gold digger. Anyway, and he turns into Electro, and all of that was just kind of boring stuff. But this similar to the last one, the ending is kind of my favorite bit. So in the last one, you had the lizard chase Gwen Stacy, and for me, my favorite bit in this very comic accurate ending, where Gwen Stacy is falling, and Peter Parker shoots out a web to try and catch her, and it spins through, and the camera is kind of going down as she's falling down, and as the netting or webbing is about to kind of catch her, and you hear that crack. And in the comics as well, it's very ambiguous as to, was it the actual the net that made her break her neck, or was it her hitting the floor? And that's kind of happens in a blink as well in this, and I quite like that. I thought that was quite good how they did that comic accurate bit. Not that they kill Gwen Stacy, because then they can't be Spider-Gwen anymore. But it was still good to see that they took some notes. But again, this was like Spider-Man 3. It was just like, we've got all this stuff. Let's just chuck it into this film. Let's chuck in Electrode. There's a bit where BJ Novak is walking past, and they've got the Sinister Sticks. So you've got Dr. Octavius, you've got Toombs, they're just kind of setting up so much stuff for future films.
Yeah.
That whole thing with his
running before they can walk.
And the whole thing with his parents doing stuff. There's just so much going on. It was just like it was just not coherent enough. Where tell the story of maybe just Electrode. You don't need to put all this. And the Rhino was just pointless because once Paul Giamatti gets into the suit, the film ends. And he's using your promo, he's using all the advertising, and there is no moment where Spider-Man fights the Rhino in the film. It was just a mess from start to finish. And I think this is exactly what happened with the kind of Spider-Man 3, where studio interference must have played such a big part, where he would have come in and said, I've got this kind of idea, and they would have been like, oh yeah, let's start spinning off Spider-Man. Let's talk about doing Sinister Six. Let's talk about doing Venom. Let's do Black Cat, Canary, all that stuff. Let's just chuck it all into this film and it'll just work, because this was at the height of the Marvel Cinematic Universe where they were building films. So the first 3 Spider-Man films were out when people were building very slowly in a different way. And because Marvel had done this, there was like, let's do post-credit scenes. Let's chuck this character in. Let's chuck this Easter egg in the background. So
you can't do that unless you have a really solid master plan, a big vision plan, which I don't think they had.
No. Chuck anything
hinting
and
at things
at
that aren't even there. It's like everyone knows that these characters exist. We all know that Spider-Man has loads of characters in the series. We don't need to be shown that way.
Yeah, and most of these people were just so underutilized. Like Felicity Jones is in the film, like Rhino's in the film we said earlier, and there's just no need for them to be in the film for so short a time. Yeah. Just leave them all out. They
suffer. Sorry, finish first.
So just create your story, and that's it.
Yeah,
you don't need.
That's what I was going to say. Really, like it suffers the same way as Spider-Man 3. It's they're just throwing all the more action and more enemies they're throwing at it. It's totally taking away from the story, which the first 2 were very strong with. And that's it really.
Yeah, it's because it's that idea where there'll be a payoff in another film. Where if you just give off the payoff in that film and then leave something else completely different for another film, it'll be fine. You can have a villain who's standalone. You don't have to just be like, let's introduce this person, but he's not going to play a part till the next one, and let's introduce this person, but he's going to play a bigger part in the. And no one's going to know if this film's going to get a second film or a third film or that franchise.
And then exactly the same thing happened as last time.
Exactly.
You show some future and then cancelled.
So this film cost even more than kind of the previous one, and it grossed even less. So this was the lowest grossing Spider-Man live-action film so far, making like 709 million. But when Deadline kind of did their kind of factor in all the calculation, how much it costs to market, produce, everyone's kind of money they make as a film makes profit. Then he actually made 70 million profit on a film that grossed 700 million. So it's nowhere near as much as they wanted. And then, based off of those returns, you'll be like, let's just cancel this. So all you did was you put all of this in here only to then cancel it. And it's just like,
it's
just
like
waste.
they have no idea of reality at this point. They just put more money in and see if more money comes out, and then it doesn't, so cancel it. Yeah. There's no intelligent use of all the stuff that they had right at their fingertips. It's just a waste. Exactly.
Yeah, they've got a good idea. They've made some money, and they're thinking, oh, the other studios or these guys are doing this. Let's do that with our Spider-Man. Yeah, Spider-Man's got loads of spin-off potentials, but just make a good film. Just make a good start film, and from start to end, and that's it. People will be happy.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then, because of the lukewarm kind of reception of that one, they cancelled all plans. And then there was the talk about Marvel and Sony licensing a deal together to bring Spider-Man back in. But before we talk about that, what's your rating on this Spider-Man film?
This one gets probably 2 stars out of 4 for me. I enjoyed it personally.
I'm very tempted to say this is one of those forget about it, don't even bother.
Put it right down the bottom.
Yeah,
I almost forgot about it until I remembered Dubstep Man, and I remember being so entertained by that guy.
There you go. There's a ringing endorsement if ever. Watch it because of Jamie Foxx.
Being Dubstep Man.
Dubstep Man, yeah.
But remember, that's his name. He's not Electro.
Electro, yeah.
Just the fact it's amazing. They just the music they bring every time he comes in. It makes his character.
Well, at the end of the film, when the whole of Times Square is lit up and they're fighting away and all sorts of stuff is going on, actually he fights to the sound of the Amazing Spider-Man, the theme. That's what they fight. Yeah, yeah, I love Spider-Man. And then because of kind of all of the mishaps and the Sony hacking and stuff, there was talks about Spider-Man being licensed back to Marvel. So Spider-Man was still
got exciting again, and people started to look forward to Spider-Man again.
Maybe. Spoiler alert. We may have done the other way. We don't know yet. So basically, they came up with an idea where they can still license the character, and they could use it between the two worlds, where he could be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, while Sony could still make movies off of that. And I remember watching Chef the other night, which is the Jon Favreau show, and I think it's episode 1 has Gwyneth Paltrow. I think it's episode 2 or 3 has the Russo brothers, Kevin Feige, Tom Holland, and Robert Downey Jr. And they talk about how quick the turnaround was from when they hired Tom Holland to when they put him in the suit to him starring in Captain America Civil War, like 4 days or 5 days, something like that. Turnaround was quick. So once they'd licensed this agreement, and I know Josh Whedon wanted him for Avengers 2, but that never happened. But as soon as that was done, they threw him into Civil War. We won't talk about Civil War because he's not really a Spider-Man film, but just a quick mention about it because he is in the film, and there's a good point halfway through the film where Robert Downey Jr. and him have a chat and they introduce Spider-Man, but the origin's all done. He's already Spider-Man. So the next film that's going to be coming out, you don't have to worry about the origin. They're not going to rehash any of that. They have the conversation. He then just comes into action, swings in, and he's just Spider-Man. And that's what we want to see. We didn't need to be told his origin. We all know about the radioactive spider that bit him 2 films ago, twice, 2 different films. We know about Uncle Ben dying. He died twice in 2 different films. So we just need to get straight into it. So they licensed an agreement between the two, and in 2017, a new Spider-Man film was released called Spider-Man Homecoming. But what was the plot for Homecoming?
The Homecoming, well, it's in the title. Is Homecoming is, in one sense, I think, is a hint to the fact that he's coming home to the Marvel Universe. Yes. Which is a great use of the title. But then also it's got a literal meaning because it's about his homecoming ball or whatever it is that they have in America. He's about to go to his homecoming ball for his school.
Yes, yep, that's right.
And I think they go on a field trip somewhere.
Yes, they do. Yes. Washington DC.
Iron Man turns up and gives him a suit and then takes it away again.
Yeah,
is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Anything else?
His friend's dad turns out to be evil, or kind of has some slight issues anyway, and he goes to prison.
Yes, I think you did a great job explaining it. So, so this one, Spider-Man Homecoming, is directed by get this, Jon Watts. That's right. If anyone was to direct Amazing Spider-Man 2, it should be Jon Watts. Put Electro in there, but he's the director of this. He directed a horror film previous to that called Clown. Did you ever see that film?
No.
It's about a guy who puts on a clown outfit, and then as time goes on, he's unable to take it off again, and then he just becomes a murderous clown, and he just goes around killing people. It's a nice comedy. And then there's a film called Cop Car, Kevin Bacon starring film about these 2 kids who steal a cop car.
Wicked.
And off a corrupt sheriff by accident, because they didn't know he was corrupt to start off with. But yeah, it's actually quite a good film.
Sounds
And
quite
then, yes,
good.
you're right. Homecoming stars Jon Favreau, the director of Iron Man films. Stars Robert Downey Jr. as well. In this film, I think Robert Downey Jr. shoots for about 4 or 5 days, and he got paid like an incredible sum of money for just coming in for a couple of days' work. And so
Living the
they
dream.
tried to they tried to limit his use. So I think it came out to be like was it million? It's either $1 million a day or something. They paid him to star in the film, and he only did like 3 or 4 days, and it shows because there's a moment where he's on the telephone. There's a moment where he's on a fight sequence, and then right at the end he's at Homecoming where they're about to give him the Iron Spider-Man suit.
Yeah.
That's kind of all he does really, and then Spider-Man left himself. It's actually a really good film. It's a simple, straightforward, one villain, one story, but it's still got enough Marvel Cinematic Universe crumbs in the film because it starts with the Chitauri aftermath, where so at the end of Avengers 1, all that mess that was created, Toombs, played by the incredible and this time around, there's let's be honest, there's some stunning people in here like Michael Keaton, Batman, but he's just so good. I wasn't distracted by how beautiful he was on screen. There, I had to just be like, "Ooh, it's Michael Keaton. He's my Batman." But it didn't distract me like Andrew Garfield's beautiful hair and his gorgeous eyes. But this film, Michael Keaton plays Toombs, and I think he does such a good job. He's one of the best villains. Of kind of like, because there isn't many good villains in the MCU. There's Eric Killmonger, Ulysses Claw, Loki, him, maybe Hela, and that's kind of it really. But he's so good. That moment where they're just chatting in the car is one of the best. When he turns around and he's worked out that Peter is Spider-Man, where he's twigged that. He's so good. Michael Keaton is incredible in this film, and it's earnest where where the reason why he's trying to do this is he's just trying to make a living. They've made a mess. He goes in, he clears up the mess, and that's what they do. And what happens? Damage Control turns up, and Tony Stark, the billionaire, his company's coming to clear up the mess, to take away jobs from the little man.
I remember now the alien technology or whatever it is there.
Yeah, the Chitauri tech. So that from the start, it's just like he's the everyman. He's just what we are. We're just going out, getting a job, doing our thing. But there's this billionaire who exactly, and Tony Stark, that's what he's doing. He's just coming in and he's just taking over the jobs that other people were doing, and he's just taking them away, and he's just bringing
from
in
honest American.
Exactly, and from the start, and I think that's why I like Michael Keaton's character so much in this Adrian Toombs, where not only is kind of like he's relatable, his actions and motives are kind of just. In a way, obviously killing people's never just, but the reason why he is trying to steal the Chitauri tech, the reason why he's using that, and he's now having to sell weapons of mass destruction out there because he's trying to make a living. He's just trying to hustle, trying to make some money because the legal ways of him making money have now been taken away by Tony Stark.
Yeah.
So Tony Stark is, in my eyes, the real villain. He's the main villain behind all of this.
Yeah.
He's the reason why everything
kind of happens so much.
Yes,
that makes him a villain.
And I really like the first Spider-Man action sequence in this as well, where the bank robbers are dressed up as Avengers characters, and he's fighting against them, and his quips and the movement of kind of him in the outfit, all of that's great. I loved all of that, and I think that kind of like and it really set kind of like seeing Michael Keaton, seeing the kind of struggle and everything, and seeing him. What happened to him, and then you see this incredible fight sequence. I was like, this is maybe the best Spider-Man movie so far. It's in the first 20 minutes or so. I was just like, this is really good. It's really funny. It's really engaging. I really feel for the villain. I can see his motivations and stuff. It's all clear to me what's going on and why, and they're not trying to build on anything other than there's a Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the events here are self-contained. And they're not global. They're quite small, and they're just to do with your local neighborhood Spider-Man.
As is often the case with Marvel sort of origin stories. they're always quite self-contained and enjoyable.
Because he's already pre-Spider-Man as well. We don't have to see that whole radioactive spider biting him again. Don't have to see Uncle Ben die again.
They could bring it up occasionally, but
But it's all kind of, we know that's all happened because he's already Spider-Man. He's got his powers, and he's been Spider-Man for quite a while now. And he's got a good nerdy friend in Ned, who was hilarious as well. And again, this film does have, I'll be honest, there's some good-looking people in this film, but I wasn't as distracted. I mean, Tom Holland's he's a good-looking lad, but he feels like he's a kid in high school. He looks like he would be someone
which is right.
who you'd see in high school. He's not too cool, Garfield. I'm talking to you. He's not. He feels young enough to be there. So him, even Ned, Zendaya. Sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. Even you all look like you belong in school. And after Sally Fields, I mean, Marissa Tomei is the most stunning Aunt May on screen after Sally Fields. So, they're just putting beautiful people to try and distract me with maybe a mediocre film this time. But it was really good. And, there's the element of that kind of mentor-mentee between him and Tony Stark, which was quite good. And they didn't let Tony Stark's character overshine the film. Like in Civil War, there's a lot more Iron Man. There are Winter Soldier bits as well, and there's a lot of Cap, but he's in it too much. Like in this one, they just sprinkle him in just at the right time. Spider-Man gets to have his action sequence. He's on the boat. He's saving the people. Iron Man comes towards the end of it, or it's not like Iron Man's helping him all the way through. And I just think that was really clever, where you've got a mentor who's out there who can look after you, can help you, who doesn't pick up the phone, but he's not someone who's overpowering you, and he's not the one who's saving you all the time. Spider-Man's doing things on his own. He's trying to save the neighborhood himself. He's trying to do one crime at a time. And it's also good to see Donald Glover in this. As Miles Morales' dad as well, Aaron Davis. So that was cool. It was a nice little nod.
Yeah, and the whole Iron Man the responsibility that he burdens a bit of bringing in Spider-Man, like as a kid, is interesting as well. Yeah,
and I think it shows, because even when they have a chat, even though it's on the phone or when he's in the car, it has that kind of they've created this. It's really weird because they've not been on screen that long, but they've got this amazing chemistry between the two of them that pays off in Infinity War, where you really
like
feel for the and it's weird because
because
they've
we've
not
seen
had
Iron Man so much. He's been the power guy for so long that you just automatically feel that he is that father figure for him, for a kid that doesn't really know what he's doing.
They bounce off each other so well that it just kind of it shows in kind of additional in the other movies as well, and the payoffs there. For me, this was a great film. Adrian Toomes, and you don't have to have a fight which is whole world consuming, like in New York, in Times Square. It's not one where the whole world's going to explode. It's about a cargo plane, and it's Toomes or the Vulture and him fighting, and I love that because it can actually have a superhero film that can be quite small, and he's just battling with his demons, and he's just battling kind of crime at a local area. He doesn't have to be trying to destroy or save the world. He's just trying to make it so this guy doesn't get weapons of mass destruction out there, and I love that. So if in terms of
how would you rate it?
This was a cinema. You have to have seen this in the cinema. There's no doubt about that. Get the full IMAX experience for this one if you wanted. Go all out. This was really, really good film.
Yeah, I'd give it 4 stars for being well presented and everything. Yeah, perfectly. Although I have to say, after talking about all the older movies, I have to say I agree with you that the first 2 movies were actually quite strong. 1 and 2 were quite strong stories on their own. So this one really does the best because it's part of that universe, and you're expecting it to be part of it, and then it does its own thing. And it all ties together nicely.
Yeah, and I think it shows, because with Homecoming, in terms of the budget, it's like 175 million. So it's the second cheapest Spider-Man film since the very first one. But its actual worldwide gross was like 880 million. So it made more than Amazing Spider-Man, that reboot, or Amazing Spider-Man 2. And it's the second highest grossing Spider-Man film of all time.
Yeah.
And
as a ratio, that's probably the highest.
And it's just a solid film. I mean, the reviews were 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, so the second highest as well so far in the franchise. So it was just such a good film, and it did everything right.
But you do probably have to be a fan of the Marvel universe to enjoy it, though, I think.
Yeah, I think just the start, you need to understand about the Chitauri tech and the battle at New York, and then why is Iron Man in this universe. So as long as you've seen bits, then it's kind of, as long as you've seen Captain America Civil War, because this one leads directly off of that, then you're okay, I think.
Yeah.
And then you can happily enjoy this film. And then that moves us nicely into the last cinematic release of the Spider-Man films. And I know you're going to say you haven't seen this one, but I'm going to. This is such a good film. There is no way we could talk about Spider-Man without talking about
Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse. That's right. It came out last Christmas time.
I wanted to see it.
And it's the first kind of non-live action cinematic release of a Spider-Man film. There's a full CG film.
Yeah.
Without obviously seeing the film, what was the plot? What's the story?
I have no idea. There's multiple. Someone taps into the multiverse, and you get to see versions of Spider-Man from across multiple dimensions. So there's different kinds, an anime style Spider-Man and others. There you go.
I think you pretty much knocked it out of the park. I'm gonna talk about it, and you might end up spoiling some of the film, but it's it follows Miles Morales. So the first time ever we see a black Spider-Man, which I think people wanted to see for a long time. The start of the film plays the Sunflower song, which is a great song, and then the film actually starts. So Miles Morales, normal kid going to school. His dad's a police officer, and his uncle is the Prowler. And Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, he's in this universe, he's fighting against the Spider-Man, our current world Spider-Man, and they're having a fight, and I'm trying to think, does this happen before he gets bitten? I think it happens before he gets bitten. So Miles Morales will get bitten by a spider. Okay.
Yeah.
He will become radioactive. He'll become
he's
Spider-Man.
He's in a fight already before he's even Spider-Man.
He's basically in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
But what's happened is Wilson Fisk's wife and kid passed away in our universe, and he's built a particle accelerator called a super collider, and he's going to turn it on, and that will bring his wife and kid from another dimension or another multiverse into our multiverse. So basically, he's just going to go to another Wilson Fisk in a different universe, and he's going to take away the wife and son in that one.
Why doesn't he go to one where he's already dead?
He's already dead.
That would make sense.
And he might be, because we don't understand where the wife and child come from. So you may pick the universe where that does happen. But in all of that, because so he's trying to find an alternate universe where his wife and son haven't died in a car crash, that obviously, and so there's a big fight, and our Spider-Man dies, so our Peter Parker dies in our universe. Now what's left is obviously Miles Morales, who's Spider-Man in our world, in our universe, and because of this accelerator, it's caused a ripple in time. And characters have come across all these multiple Spider-Men. So you have Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen. You have Peter Parker, another Peter Parker from another alternative universe, voiced by Jake Johnson. And he's a chubby guy. He's He's a Spider-Man who's given up on the world. He's not. He's just like, it's fine. I don't really care anymore. And he's given up all of the web swinging. But you got an idealistic young Miles Morales. You get Spider-Ham, Spider Noir, and the anime version of Spider-Man as well. And they're going to come up against like Dr. Octavius, but also Twist, Aaron Davis, Miles Morales' uncle, who he idolizes and loves. He's the Prowler, and he gets chased down by the Prowler. And there's this big sequence between him and the Prowler. It looks incredible. Cinematically, this film is beautiful. It's just amazing. It's really funny. There's lots of good kind of actual sequences in there. And the voice acting is really good as well. Like even you got I forget his name. You got the Oscar winner Ali in it. Nicolas Cage is in there. Lee Shriver's in there. There's a whole bunch of even I forget what's her name. Haley Steinfeld, I want to say. She plays Gwen Stacy. So yeah, it's a huge cast. But it's a really fun, really funny film where they have actually said, you know what, there are multiple Spider-Men or women and insects.
Or pigs.
And they all exist in multiple verses. And we're going to make our main character this black character called Miles Morales. And everyone else will join in his story. And they did such a great job with this movie. This movie is incredible. Like it looks amazing. The artwork is outstanding. And the whole story, it's really funny. There's a lot of nice twists to it. It's just a full-on, highly entertaining movie. It's incredible. Highly recommend this one. If you haven't seen it, this is definitely a cinema watch. I know you haven't seen it, but if you were to give it a rating, based on my description about Miles Morales, multiverse opening up, all these other Spider-Man coming. Another twist: Dr. Octavius is in this film. Yeah, played by a woman.
It sounds like a 4-star out of 4. To be honest, it sounds like it has its own internal things all working, and it wouldn't annoy me in any way.
and for me, like it was such a good film. It's I'm having all the best time in the world. They all go back to their own multiverse at the end, and Miles Morales is our key. But there's a post-credit scene at the end as well, and it's really, really funny. I thought because. So there's the I want to say it's not the Ultimate Spider-Man, but it's the most futuristic Spider-Man, I think, from 2099, and he's watching back the whole thing, and he goes, okay, based on these events, now he needs to travel back and get all the Spider-Man. So he travels back to 1967 Spider-Man. So remember the old cartoon, the 1967 cartoon Spider-Man. He goes back in time to be in that to get the Spider-Man, and they have this conversation between the two. It's really funny. It's hilarious. It's really, really good. So potentially, I mean, they can open up this world into so many different ways. They've already done that. It just goes to show if you have a film, and maybe this is where the new Spider-Man franchise live action should go. They should somehow bring Tobey Maguire's universe, Andrew Garfield's universe, Tom Holland's universe, and chuck in Jake Johnson, because I really like him, as a Spider-Man, and some others, Gwen Stacy, some other characters, and put them all into a film version. It would be incredible.
So like a live action version of Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes, exactly that. And chucking the old Spider-Man in there as well. Putting Topher Grace, somehow get him in there because he was Venom, but also putting Tom Hardy because he's Venom. Why not have two of them? But yeah, something like that. Something so different. This film was so, in my opinion, so fresh. They came up with this idea which was so different to what most films do. Most films, they're safe. Like even Batman Begins, Dark Knight, they're all quite safe. It's Batman versus Robin, Joker, or Batman versus the Scarecrow, or it's Batman versus Bane, and this is him in Gotham, and that's it. Or even Batman v Superman, it wasn't that good a film, but it didn't open up the verses where they could have had a red Superman. They could have had Injustice Superman. They could have opened up that multiverse, which they didn't do. And this is the first film that did it.
Interesting, yeah.
And this was, and it's done so well. I mean, if you look at the critical rating for this one, I think it's even higher than any other Spider-Man has ever had. This is,
the 90s,
I think it was Yeah, it's in the high 90s. It's the most
I imagine.
critically acclaimed Spider-Man film ever. It's like 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. And in terms
Because
of
it
kind
didn't
of box,
take itself too seriously.
yeah, it's a fun
Self-aware
film,
and it's funny.
but the numbers are crazy because it cost 90 million to make, but it only grossed 375 million, which makes it the lowest grossing Spider-Man film. But it's a computer animated film, so for a live action film, this would have made a ton more money because kids, adults, everyone would go to watch it. Unfortunately, the audience didn't come out as much as they should have done, and this is one of those films that
it's still a good ratio from the money put in to the money come out.
yeah. So they'll still be. You can make
Spider-Man
sequels.
2.
So one of the ideas you could potentially have is just have the female Spider Women come together and have their own multiverse story. We've got Miles Morales as the. Well, it's Spider-Man, Spider-Women. It's not
Captain
Captain
Marvel can
Marvel's
come into
got nothing to do with
Marvel
spiders.
universe.
No, Into the Spider-Verse has got nothing to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Of course it does. Spider-Man is part of the universe.
The live-action
It's part of the
Spider-Man
Marvel
is
universe.
part of the live-action Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Into the Spider-Man cartoon has nothing to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
We can do.
I mean, they'd have to strike some sort of deal, but yeah.
Yeah. So I take it this was by Sony, was it?
Yes, it was, yes.
Yeah.
Sony Animated Pictures or Studios, whatever they call themselves.
They still own the rights.
So we talked about 7 Spider-Man films, right? And now we have to do our definitive ranking. Based on the ones you remember and the ones you loved, what would you say is the best Spider-Man film from all 7 Spider-Man films?
That's a tough question. What would you say?
I purely because of nostalgia feel and the fact that there was nothing quite like that at the time. For me, my favorite Spider-Man film is Spider-Man 2, the original Sam Raimi film, because it had a better villain, you had a better, the action was better, everything was ramped up to the right amount. I think I know it's Tobey Maguire, you don't like him, but that to me is the best Spider-Man movie, only purely because of the time. If Sam Raimi's films weren't involved, it'd be Into the Spider-Verse would be my favorite Spider-Man film of all time. So I go Spider-Man 2, I go Into the Spider-Verse as my second, then I'd pick Homecoming, then Spider-Man 1, then it would be Amazing Spider-Man, then it would be Spider-Man 3, and then finally Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Well, if it wasn't for Tobey Maguire's face, I'd probably go for Spider-Man 1 or 2 for story-wise, strong story.
They're 2 different films, so you can only have one of them sitting at the middle.
Yeah, well, Tobey Maguire's face, so that I can't pick them anyway. So I think I'm going to go with Ed the Spider-Verse that I haven't seen yet.
As your favourite Spider-Man film?
Yeah. I can't wait to see it.
One day.
Or maybe even Far From Home, which hasn't come out yet.
Oh, yeah, we can't really put that in because we have no idea what it's going to be.
We need to talk about it, though.
We'll come into when we preview future Spider-Man films. That's when we'll be talking about it.
No.
But for now,
we cannot leave without talking about Far From Home just a little bit. We've seen the trailer. It's obviously it's coming after Homecoming and Infinity War and Endgame. We have to talk about it.
We'll preview. That's when our preview bit comes on. You're skipping the gun. First, let's rank the first 7 that you've seen or not seen, and then we'll talk about the 8th film which you haven't seen. Clearly.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I've seen the trailer though.
Okay, so based on the trailer, where do you put that in the ranking, 1 to 8?
In the ranking, I'm going to put that as my favorite, number 1.
Wow, comes straight in at number 1.
Why not?
And then what's your second favorite?
Well, I've put that as number 1 now, so I'll put Homecoming as number 2. Stick to Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep, and then?
Then Spider-Verse.
Well, and then that leaves the last 5.
Then Dubstep Man.
Then Dubstep Man. Wow, that high up. 4th favorite Spider-Man film.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what's your 5th favorite?
My 5th favorite, Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, that leaves the Sam Raimi films. That's the 3 worst Spider-Man film. In
Tobey
which order?
Maguire's piece. Well, number
But
3
in
can
which?
definitely go at the bottom. And I guess it would be Spider-Man 2 above Spider-Man, just because obviously the slow burner origin done.
No, done. Okay, so that's the current slate. Obviously, you brushed on it a little bit. Spider-Man: Far From Home is the next upcoming Spider-Man movie, again starring Tom Holland. This time we've got Nick Fury plays a role because we've seen the trailer. Spoiler alert for Endgame. The trailer starts with the aftermath of Endgame, where they're all kind of coming together to terms of what's just happened. The five-year time jump as well. And Nick Fury is trying to recruit Spider-Man, and there's a new person, Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. He's in the film as well. So this comes out in a couple of weeks. I am super excited for this one. You put this as your number one anticipated film of all time, by the sounds of things. So how excited are you for this one?
Wow, it's my number one anticipated Spider-Man movie of this month.
Well, it comes out in July, so
really high ranking. But yeah, I've seen every single Marvel cinematic movie. I just love all the origin stories, and I love all the individual movies that stick to one character. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Spider-Man as treated by Marvel, because they almost don't take a step wrong. So it doesn't really matter how good the story is or not. They just seem to know how to nail it. So yeah,
I think I'll be interested in that Endgame 5-year jump, the aftermath of it all, how they kind of address it, if they do address it in this film. It's interesting to see what they kind of talk about or don't talk about.
Yeah,
and if half of his students have
subtly...
gone, or half the students have already graduated and grown 5 years older, and half haven't. So So I wonder what will happen there. So yeah, definitely excited for this, because the trailers make it look amazing, and plus they shoot some of that shooting looks like they did it in our backyard, England, where because we all live in London because we're from England, so it's our back garden. There's also
your back garden's a long way away.
I mean, it's have you not seen the trailer? Do you see him just playing in my pond? That's just the River Thames. I'm definitely excited for this one. It'd be good to see how they kind of push the story forward, and also where they take it. Because after watching Venom as well, the Tom Hardy one, I would like to see how Tom Holland and Tom Hardy would somehow coincide together as well. Because that was a good example of a pretty much self-contained movie where it's just about Venom, and at the end there's a post-credit scene about Carnage, but that's it. That's all it is. No more kind of adding to the world, no more kind of like references to Tom Holland or the cinematic universe. It's just he's a reporter, he's doing his thing, he's become Venom, and that was it. Yeah. And you know what, Tom Hardy did such a good job. It's like the film is fine, it's good. It's not great, but he's having so much fun, and that's what kind of like made me think, I like this character. You could tell that film could have so easily been R-rated, because some of the Venom deaths are kind of borderline.
Yeah, I'm surprised some of it wasn't really. Some was quite scary.
Yeah, it's brutal as well, the way he kind of kills. It'd be interesting to see how him and Carnage, the next film, play out, because Carnage is a crazier version of Venom and Riot. And if they can somehow get Tom Holland into that world, or get Venom into this world, that'd be cool. So yeah, I'd be really excited to see how this film goes out, and then I'm looking forward to Venom 2 as well.
Wicked.
So we're going to talk about our first kind of reoccurring segment now. This is called My Guy Quick Reviews. So what we're going to do here is talk about some of the stuff that we've either played video games wise, or anything read. Maybe you read a tweet, maybe you read a book, maybe you read an article, that sort of thing, and anything we've seen where we can give it a quick couple-minute review and just kind of talk about it. So what have you been doing in the last couple of weeks?
Well, we've seen lots of movies, obviously. Dark
Yes.
Phoenix, Secret Life of Pets 2 was
Any
quite
worth
fun.
talking about?
Well, just sure, I can go through them if you want.
Just a quick, yeah.
A really quick one. So, well, let's go back a little bit actually. Godzilla King of the Monsters was one I was really looking forward to.
Oh, yeah. It's the director of Trick or Treat as well. I was really excited for that one. I
Yeah.
missed it. Stayed
Okay.
off. Any
Yeah.
good?
So, well,
Give it your rating.
it's a bit of a mixed bag in some ways. I really enjoyed it because I'm a really big fan of the older Japanese monster movies,
Mothra. Okay.
in which you just get Mothra, you get uh, Ganon, whatever his name is.
Men and women in suits fighting each other
Yeah, just
in
men in
costumes.
rubber suits like Power Rangers. And so yeah, it's a really good movie if you like that sort of thing. 'Cause it brings in lots of monsters, and it's got King Ghidorah in it, which
Oh, brilliant.
yeah, and it's just lightning and just complete world changing, just a phenomenal like monster coming in. So that's nice to look at, but at the same time, it's not quite the same sort of down to earth perspective as the first movie in this series was. So
Oh, the first one was so bad.
it, it I really liked that. I
I
really
know
liked
you
that
did. I don't know why.
But
You
then,
did.
but I also really like this way of doing it as well. But it is a bit over the top, whereas that other side was quite grounded. So yeah, Detective Pikachu I saw as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We're
What do you
gonna
think of that?
rush through these. That was an amazing
Yes.
movie. That was a really good movie. I was
Oh, was it?
surprised by that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First half is really inventive and creative, and really enjoyable movie. Second half gets a bit more predictable.
So say
Um,
to people quickly, do you need to know anything about Pokemon to go into this and
no,
enjoy it?
no, I don't
Oh,
know a thing about Pokemon. It might be useful to know a couple of the Pokemon, but the ones that they do pick on tend to be ones that people will know something about or might have heard about. So, but even if you don't, you can still enjoy it definitely. Um,
so that's another good one.
yeah, Ma. I know you wanted to see Ma. I saw
Yes, I
that.
do want to watch that. So from the Blunt House, the people behind all these kind of the Purge franchise,
Yeah,
a lot of kind of horror films that are coming out,
it's
like
a
the Get
sort of
Out
horror.
series and stuff. Yeah, Saw. No, it's always someone else. But yeah, Get Out and Us. Yeah. So what was this one? Halloween last
Well,
year as well.
yeah, it's again a good movie. Not nothing amazing about it. Just a lady that acts a bit strange, and then a few shock moments. But it's an okay movie. Yeah, I wouldn't highly recommend it for the cinema.
Okay, it's a video streaming one then. Wait.
Yeah, probably the case for you as well. Yeah. Secret Life of Pets 2.
Yes, I saw the first one. Kevin Hart
Se-
played the bunny.
Seen the first one? Yeah. In this one, you've got all the same characters back. Different story, but it did feel a bit like a TV series. Like it was like a TV series episode where they have one main story, but then they keep flashing back to this other side story.
Yeah.
Like if you're watching a Family Guy episode and they've
Oh,
got a
okay.
main story, but they keep it interesting by having other stuff going on. So in that sense, it was maybe the story wasn't as interesting, and they had to try and sort of mix things together to keep you interested. So it's still an enjoyable movie, but yeah, that's it kind of made excuses for itself in that way.
Video streaming service again.
Yeah, I would stick to streaming service for that. Yeah. What else did I see? I haven't seen Aladdin yet, and I haven't seen Booksmart. Those are movies I want to see, but might not
There
get
you.
around to.
That's. Um,
Talked about Dark Phoenix slightly, and Brightburn, I think, in another video. So
yes, we have. Yeah, we've already spoken about them. So for, I watched Venom this week. I'd never seen that before.
okay, you only just watched it.
I
Okay,
only just saw it last week. Yeah, so
okay.
I really like
So
Venom. I'm not the best film ever made, but it's definitely worth waiting for. It's
yeah,
currently on for anyone in the UK. It's currently on Sky Movies. So yeah, you can watch that now. It's okay. It's not terrible. Tom Hardy's really good in that. I've been watching a lot of Chef recently. Jon Favreau's new TV show based off the film Chef, where he goes around and he's cooking. Yesterday's episode had Robert Rodriguez, and he made this pizza out of cauliflower, which looked amazing. Well worth a watch, only purely because Jon Favreau meets all these famous people. So there's an episode with Kevin Feige, the Russo brothers. So if you like the cinematic universe, the Marvel stuff, they're all sat around the table just having a chat. Him, Kevin Feige, Tom Holland, Robert Downey Jr. So for geeks, I mean, it's a great show. And he meets more and more people as the show goes on. So yeah, it's a good watch. And I've got back into playing Broforce again. I'm just rubbish at this game, but it's just one game that I just for some reason want to play more and more of. It's one of those old school platformers where one hit and you die.
Yeah.
There's no map.
Okay.
There's no kind of telling you where you go, but you just got to go right or down.
Yeah.
That's kind of
PS4.
It's a PS4, yeah.
Okay.
And
I've
been playing.
PS4
It was free a couple of months back on the PlayStation Network.
Okay, so I might have it online somewhere. I have to have a check. Hello?
So he spent ages trying. And so yeah, it's I mean it's fine, but it's no. I don't know. I think you play Legacy more than I do, so.
All right.
It's one that.
Yeah, sorry, you're cutting out, so I can't hear what you're saying.
No, that's fine. I was just talking about Rogue Legacy.
Yeah, I've been playing that recently as well. Yeah.
And the problem I have with that game, every time you die, you have to give all your money back. I couldn't find a way of stockpiling cash so I can buy extra health or anything. You have to be really good in one life. So that for me is too difficult a game to play compared to how easy Broforce was.
Well, it is
I'll get back into that at some point.
Play game. So
yeah.
I think the idea is as you get by the little power ups, you'll end up making more money anyway. So then you'll be able to buy the bigger power ups.
Hopefully.
So it's a die and repeat sort of game. So
like Dark Souls.
I think it's possible to complete the game in one go without any power ups, but you have to be very, very good. Which is yeah. Oh
yes.
So we're talking about games now. Have you got any others to talk about?
No, just those two.
Okay, well, I was really excited to see Sonic Mania on the PS.
I have no nostalgia for this game, so I played it.
Yeah. Well, I haven't played it yet, so I'm looking forward to giving it a go.
Oh, that's in our next segment. You're skipping ahead. Okay, so we'll put an end to this segment, which was MyGuy quick reviews. Let's talk about MyGuy previews, the stuff that we're going to be up and coming. And I get the feeling you're going to be playing a PlayStation game soon. By the Blue Hedgehog.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing Sonic Mania, and I'm also looking forward to playing Borderlands.
Jack the new DLC is out. Yeah,
and the new DLC that's really just a big advert for the third game coming out. Yeah, looking forward to that. There's news in the book world for me personally. The Fighting Fantasy game book world. There's a new book being announced.
Oh,
called Assassins of Alancia, which I'm not that keen on the name, but Alancia is the main continent that some of the books take place in. So obviously that's world building title. So I'm quite excited for that coming out in August. They're game books, as in like they're choose your own adventure books.
Nice.
You play it as a character within the book and get to choose decisions along the way.
Reading for nerds.
Yeah. You read more than me.
I did. In terms of what I'm looking forward for this weekend, Toy Story 4.
Oh yeah.
That's the big one. And watching more of the Cricket World Cup. For those who don't know, there's a World Cup happening in the UK, and it involves a game called cricket, and loads of teams play all around the world. And for the next month and a bit, I'll be following the World Cup. So if anybody else has got any kind of World Cup antidotes, I'm happy to hear them out. And then also, just similar to yourself, check out the new DLC for Borderlands. I love Borderlands. Remember we got Game of the Year edition for the first one. We used to play that a lot together. We even played the second one. We used to play that Tiny Tina's Assault.
Oh yeah.
I used to love it. Borderlands is one of my favorites.
DLC.
And so yeah, I'm looking forward to the new DLC. I'm looking forward to Borderlands 3 in general as well. I mean, I will get that at some point. We'll try and finish this one first.
Yeah. It's going to cost a lot when it first comes out, so I'll be waiting for a few months at least.
Price drop, yes.
Yes.
So tell us what you think. This is our first podcast. If you got any ideas or topics you want us to do a bit of start on at the start, we've got a Twitter handle called MyGuy Reviews. We've got an Instagram account called MyGuy Reviews. We have an email address called myguyreviews@gmail.com. Hit us up with your ideas, your topic suggestions, and we'll try and incorporate that in the next few weeks. And I think the next one is you'll be doing the work and I'll be just kind of chiming in. So I'll take a back seat, which will be nice. This hopefully will be on iTunes and your wherever you get your podcasts from. Hit us up with your likes, 5-star reviews helps push the channel up. And even if you didn't like it, put 5 stars and tell us why not. And we'll try and improve for the next one. But just so the podcast gets out there. If you found this, I don't know how you did, but thanks. Tell a friend, subscribe, and as time goes on, we'll start putting more and more content up there as well. So yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.